At 38 years old, I had the testosterone of a 72-year-old. TRT gave me back my confidence, my energy, everything I had lost. But years later, when me and my now ex-wife tried to conceive a child and couldn't, my urologist informed us that TRT was likely a contributing factor as to why. That's information that I wish I'd have known. I don't remember my providers telling me about the fertility issues. That's why I wanted to bring on Dr. Vaudin, to give you better information and make sure that you're more informed about the health decisions you're making than I was. Luckily, the nurse practitioner worked and moonlighted in a hormone clinic and was like, have you had your testosterone tested? And that's when I found out that I had the average testosterone at 38 as a 72-year-old of the 80s. So that was great and kind of hit my masculinity pretty close to home. Feels like you're less than for a minute. And getting on testosterone absolutely turned all that around. All the things that I know work started working again. But there were also some real health issues that either people didn't tell me about, or I was so worried about what was happening that I didn't pay attention to. And so later on, when me and my now ex-wife tried to have kids, I was unable to conceive. And I'm pretty sure, and so is my urologist, that part of that is going to be because of that being on the synthetic testosterone for so long. And I don't think a lot of guys that go into these clinics to get this done, no one's telling them that. And I don't want anybody else to go through what I did. So what are kind of the common things you're seeing and that you look for as a professional in this space that guys should be looking for red flags? And what are the reasons why, even if it's there, maybe they wouldn't want to be on testosterone?
The story that you shared about your personal story is not uncommon these days, but everyone's afraid to talk about it because of a long-standing kind of culture. And I'll bring the historic perspective to this and then also talk about where we're at today. And you're 100% right. And, a couple of decades ago, when you watched John Wayne on TV, when you watched the Cowboys, they didn't complain about much, and you just had grit and you just got through what you had to get through when you were on your adventure in life. And so that part was true about masculinity and how you were supposed to approach life at that point in time. But as time has been changing and where we're at today, they don't have the same environmental risk factors that we have been predisposed to, where our physiology is different. So the modern man today actually faces a lot of detriments to their health from environmental factors such as BPAs from frying pans, from what they eat, anti-pesticides. You have chemicals and ultra-processed foods. You have seed oils. All of these things that didn't exist when we weren't such a successful nation exist today, which is actually starting to hold back men from achieving their masculinity, achieving their physical health, their optimal health that they're supposed to be at.
I couldn't recover from just minor hurts as well. Like just bruising and stuff took longer to heal. It was really surreal. I felt all of a sudden very old is how I frame it. I guess with all this, right, the masculinity conversation and having some kind of metric for it has been really important. It's informed a lot of my work I'm doing here on the podcast around how to socialize some of these things. But there's also just a lot of bad actors. So let's say that a guy goes through, they get the test, they advocate, they're like, okay, I need to do some kind of treatment for this. And I know one of the options is actually getting on testosterone itself. I use a medication instead, which works really well for me. And I imagine there are some that you'd talk about with different patients depending on their needs. What should they be watching for? Because I see a lot of really predatory actors in these health clinics.
So testosterone is a substance which is FDA regulated, means that you have to have a prescription for testosterone. So if anybody is selling you testosterone, synthetic testosterone, or any sort of a testosterone supplement, which is not FDA approved or doesn't require a prescription, means those are bad actors. I would definitely stay away because some of that's one, it's illegal. And number two, they're getting stuff, and there have been multiple FDA arrests and busts in this territory for people that get stuff from China and then they sell it on the internet or sell it in gyms, in locker rooms. Someone who knows a guy can get a package. So anabolic steroids, some people use testosterone, synthetic testosterone, as a supplement for their goals of anabolic muscle growth, which is one of the benefits of testosterone. But also that's exactly how they used to talk about anabolic steroids. And so tren is the one that kind of frequently comes up online, or oxandrolone, which is frequently used in the muscle bodybuilding world. We don't recommend those things. And if anybody who starts off with that as their testosterone treatment, I would run, not even walk away. I would run from them.
The place I went to ended up being it was a clinic, and it was with a nurse practitioner, but they also seemed very willy-nilly in their prescription. Like, I only needed the small pellet. I would get the pellet treatment, and they put in the larger one on accident, and there wasn't a conversation about that being a bad thing. And it was. Like, it was fundamentally different. All of a sudden I was angry. All of a sudden I had different physiological symptoms that were not comfortable. And that was just from a mistake, because they're like, well, yeah, you got more. Isn't that good? And that was with a medical provider.
If somebody is marketing testosterone as a product rather than actually the condition that they're trying to treat, I would take a second look. Meaning, in order to regulate someone's hormones, which is going to impact every facet of your life, you don't want to be injecting yourself with something cheap that they got from China that might be obtained illegally, because you can imagine the type of effects it'll have on your body. The person that you're talking to, or the clinic that you're talking to, one thing is they should be having a real conversation with you about what symptoms you're having, what are your goals, what's your medical history, and how does your lifestyle fit into play. Checking your testosterone levels, it's a whole picture of within hormone health. There's various facets to your testosterone health, and some of the most important to pay attention to is it's not just your total testosterone levels. You actually have to pay attention to your free testosterone level, which is the unbound component of testosterone that actually is physiologically the functions of how testosterone is in your body. And then secondly, what are your estradiol levels, your sex hormone binding globulin, and your LH and FSH markers. The LH and FSH, for me as a clinician, I'll tell you as a doctor, that's the one that I pay attention for. Because not everyone checks your LH and FSH levels, because they don't have to in order to prescribe you testosterone. If your testosterone levels are low, they can prescribe it to you. But any good clinician will first ask you about your LH and FSH levels, because one of the reasons you could have a low, and this is rare, but happens far enough that any endocrinologist that you go to would make sure to ask you this question, is what's your LH and FSH levels? Because if you have a prolactinoma, which is a small tumor in your brain, that could be the reason for your low testosterone. And so that it happens about 1 in 1,000 cases, but any physician would screen you for that and to say, hey, if your testosterone levels are low, could it be a brain tumor? And that's causing your low testosterone levels. And the reason they would ask that before giving you the testosterone is because if you just mask the symptoms by then increasing your testosterone levels, you will never figure it out until it's 20, 30 years later and you can't see out of an eye because where the tumor would be near your hypothalamus pituitary gland. When they gets too high, there's a problem, right? So if your red blood cells get too high, it can actually put you at rest for clotting. And so that's something to look out for by getting, what you're supposed to do is get a blood test, a complete blood count that looks at your hemoglobin levels. And so that's a side effect that is to be monitored. And if it gets above a certain amount, then you start to pay attention to how else do you manage your testosterone and what you should do about the red blood cell count being too high.
Well, so essentially it goes back to there are ways to mitigate most problems if you and your provider are paying attention and talking through them. And so like I'm on Clomid now. I don't do testosterone, I do Clomid. And for me, it increased my testosterone to the place I want it to be. And it doesn't feel synthetic. Like when I was on testosterone, I felt different than this. And so me and my doctor, that's what we've chosen for my treatment and going forward. And we keep an eye on things, but that's probably just what I'm going to be on for quite a while. And so it sounds like when people think of low testosterone, they think of it as a singular problem, but it's our health and it's our hormone health. So it's going to be complex. And so anybody you're talking to about it that's treating it like a single point issue is doing you a disservice as a provider.
Absolutely. You wouldn't want to get your tire changed without them checking your fluids, right? I mean, you're doing other, and that's this is your actual health, which impacts you every single day.
This usually connects to two things.